over again till I need a spotlight. Now I am. Thank you. Okay. Good evening. The name of my story tonight is saying goodbye. You know, I don't know about any of you, but I have been glued to the TV for the last 6 weeks, watching and hearing about the war in Ukraine. The saddest part that makes me cry is the train station where mothers and fathers are putting their hands together on the glass wall and saying goodbye through the glass, not ever knowing that they're going to ever see each other again. And their children in their arms saying goodbye to their daddies or crying and just, waving through the glass windows. It emotionally upsets me, but it also brought back a memory of mine. My father's name was Edward Nathan Schwartz. His father came from Russia. His mother came from Poland. And he was the first generation. And when World War II started, he was in high school. He dropped out and joined the Navy and served in the Pacific, but he would never answer any questions about what happened to him there. My mother was Becky Schwartz. Her parents, her mother was from Poland and her father was from Russia. They had a little tailor shop and they had a little sign which says, "Sorry, no trust," that my grandfather stood proudly like this with it behind him. And they couldn't afford to send her to college. So when she graduated, she got a job in the state offices. Albany was the capital of New York, and all the state offices are located there. Now, every Friday night at the Ukraine Hall in Albany, there was a live band, and both my mother and father had the passion for dancing. And they went and they met there and they fell in love dancing every Friday night. In fact, my mother would say, "I remember the night everyone got into a circle and watched just the two of us dance." Well, they got married. My mother continued working at the state and she built herself up and getting promotions until she ended up in the secretarial pool of Governor Rockefeller, the governor at the time. And when he got to know her, his personal secretary left and he said, "Becky, I want you to become my personal secretary." And he said to her, "When I go out to Maine," he had a house in Maine and he was very rich. He had a house here and a house there. "I don't want to be disturbed when I'm not in the capital. I want you to take the phone calls and make the decisions for me for New York State." My mother felt, I've made it now through all her education and working up to that level. So when we used to answer the phone before this happened, "Hey, Mom, you have a phone call?" No. "Hello, Schwartz residence. Can we help you?" We got trained on phone etiquette. And she made decisions for years when he was out of town and ran the state of New York. She was probably the governor, not him, because he always came to say, "Becky, what should I do?" even at work. My father, when they had fallen in love and decided to get married, had taken a job in a shoes salesman position at Corbett Shoes. He was supposed to be a barber, but the day he was supposed to take his test, my grandfather had a stroke and he had to go to the hospital and he missed it. And he had to have some money because he was getting married. So he took the job temporarily as a shoe salesman. And they had 3 kids, Beverly, which they named me, which my nickname, which only my family knew, was Bebby. No one else did it, called me Bebby. My 2.5-year younger brother was Paulie. And then there was one brother that was 8 years younger than me, and he'd come down the hall or something, and I was a wise ass, and I say, "Here comes the accident." His name was Bruce, for Brucey. Well, their main goal in life was making sure we had college funds to go to college. That was the most important thing that they could do for us. And they did, and they opened up. We all started working in the shoe store, my brothers, babysitting for me or the local Walmart or Kmart. And every penny we earned, we had to put it in our savings account towards college. And I was the very first one in our family to graduate college and have a career as a teacher. And my brothers also got careers too. Time flies. And after 39 years, my father was still working for that one shoe store. My mother was still working for the state. My father had health problems and said, I'm going to have to retire. I can't handle my job. So he did. And my mother said, why not? So she retired. She had worked all her life too. Without telling us, they went down to Florida. They bought a home. They came back. They sold the home. And a month before they were going to leave, we got a phone call. We bought a house and we're leaving. We have some stuff if you want it. Come and get it. Otherwise, we're going to throw it away. And off they went to Florida. What a shock. Well, they decided it was too hot in the summertime to live there, though. So spring, they would come to my house in Albany, live with me for a couple months, and my brother was his local still, so he was able to see them. Then they went down for Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's to Texas, where all the grandkids were. My brother had 3 kids, Brucey. And then they go back to Florida. And the warm months there when we were freezing up in Albany. Well, they were there a good 15 years when my mother got sick and she went into the hospital. My father called me and said, she's real sick. They're going to give her a chemo treatment and see what happens. And I said, well, I'll come down, Dad. In a couple of days, I'll take off from work and come down. And before I could go down, the phone rang. It was my dad. Mommy died last night. I never had a chance to say goodbye to her or even see her. I was devastated. My father decided to do what he had always done, live with me in those regular months of the summer, my brother in the winter, and live by himself in Florida, where he still went dancing, and he had his dance card, and all the older single women in all the places he danced would want to dance with him. He still loved dancing. But when he was 79 that summer, before his birthday, when he would have been 80 in November, he wasn't feeling good. He was trying to hide it, but I knew my father by then. And he said, can I invite my best friend Harry from childhood, which I always thought of as my Uncle Harry? We'd like to take a trip to my parents' graveyard and see their gravestones. What a weird request. But I drove the 2 of them, and they're talking about their childhood, and I'm hearing stories I never heard before. And I couldn't find it. And I flagged down a policeman. He said, oh, follow me. So he took us to the graveyard. And they had a lovely afternoon looking at all the gravestones of people they knew when they were growing up. And I have a picture of my father on my dresser today, standing next to his parents' gravestone with a big smile on his face. Well, I told my brother Bruce, I said, I'm going to take him to the doctor and see what they say. And they said he needed some tests. Now it was close to November, so my brother said, I'll start and have those tests here. We'll send the records down. So we did. And it was the holidays, and they finally got the test results back in January, the end of January, beginning of February. And I had planned to go to the Caribbean that February for a vacation. And the phone rings. It's my brother, Bruce. And Brucey says to me, we got the test results back. You were right, Beth. He has cancer and it's terminal. He's refusing all treatments. Oh, I said, look, I'm going to cancel my vacation to the Caribbean. I'm coming right down. He said, okay, but we're not going to be home. Tina and I, his wife, work all day and the kids go have sports at night. You'll be basically alone with him. No problem. So I flew down. I had the best week of my life with my father. We talked. We walked their dog. We remembered our dog. We played games. We watched the TV. And when they were singing on TV, we sang along with the song. And there was Dancing with the Stars that week. We got up and danced every single song and sang every single song they were doing. And guess what? We won that night, Dancing with the Stars. Then he said, can you make mommy's noodle kugel? Well, I think I can make it. So we got the ingredients and we made it, and the smell, it smells like mommy's kugel. You did it. He said, can we take a sneak bite out of it before we serve it? And I said, oh, of course. We got ourselves 2 big bowls and we sat down. It was horrible. And we threw it away. We never told my family what happened. The week was over before you knew it. Where did it go? It was the best father and daughter week I had ever spent. No phones, nobody's calling me. We did whatever we wanted. And the day came when I had to say goodbye to him. We stood at the door. My brother took my suitcase and he was loading the car. And it was just the 2 of us. And we hugged and we kissed and we took each other's cheek. And I shined his bald head. He didn't like that, but we knew he really did. Beep, beep, beep goes the horn. Come on, Dad, you're going to miss your plane. Oh, my father and I just shook our heads. He doesn't understand. We're saying goodbye. And we had never talked all week about his sickness. But we both knew in our hearts we were saying goodbye forever. Finally, I gave him one more hug and I said, I better go. And I started walking towards the car. All of a sudden, Bevy, turn around! Bevy, turn around! I thought maybe he was going to have a heart attack or something. I'm turning around. Are you okay? And he starts singing a song to me. When I was a little girl, I sat on his lap and he would sing to me, I love you, a bushel in the peck, a bushel in the peck, and a hug around the neck. And he put a kiss on his hand and he blew it. I caught it. And then I went, and he caught it. And we looked at each other for a moment and smiled. And I walked in, got into the car, and I looked as long as I could as we drove away. My father died a month later. That was the last time I would have seen him. I'd like to read you something that pertains to all of us today and the Ukraine war that's happening. I will repeat it twice because I've told the story many times now, and they always seem to ask me to read it twice. There will be peace when the love of peace is greater than the love of power. It's by Jimi Hendrix, a singer. There will be peace when the love of peace is greater than the love of power. Thank you.
Thank you, Beverly.
Oh, boy. Wow. Listen, you're one part of your story pulled up a joke, which I want to add to my repertoire. And now is the best time. A guy living in New York gets a phone call from his father. His father and mother are retired in Florida. And he says, I'm just going to give it to you straight, Chuck. Your mother and I are getting a divorce. What? Listen, I'll level with you. You're an adult. For like 20 years now, we couldn't stand each other, but we didn't want to break up and lay that burden on you. Well, you're on your own 2 feet now. We're getting a divorce. And listen, I don't want to go through this with your sister. You call her and tell her. So he hangs up. Chuck calls his sister in Chicago, gives her the news. She says, I'll take care of this. She calls her father, says, Pop, don't do a thing. Chuck and I will be down there on the first plane. Then we'll talk. Hangs up. Now he says to his wife, okay, the kids are going to be here for Thanksgiving and they're buying their own tickets. No, didn't go across, huh?
I've heard it before. That's why I should have remembered the end.
Okay.
So what did you think of the story?
It was very moving. Full of detail, but always interesting. And moving is, wow. It makes me think of, I can't think of anything in my family life that I would hold up to that. And I mean, that's okay. I am who I am. You are who you are. But it makes it really admirable for me. It's something that I haven't really experienced.
Very moving, very moving.
Kind of found myself envisioning your father in the doorway. I could sort of physically see him in the doorway. That was cool.
I should bring the picture down and maybe even show the graveyard. I do have that picture, but I don't know if it's it might take away from the story.
Oh, can I ask a question? Are they buried next to each other or?
In Albany, yep.
They arranged that before.
Yep, we flew them both up to Albany and we had the service and everything at the graveyard for both of them, and they showed a gravestone.
Oh, all right. The way they wanted to be.
Oh,
yeah.
they planned everything. When I was 50 years old, you know what my parents bought me for my birthday?
No, the instructions for their no.
They bought a plot near them so I could be buried near them for the rest of my life. And I have to pay every month so much money now
For
to
eternity.
to maintain my grave site. It's true.
Happened to me too.
That's a different birthday present, isn't it?
Yeah. That happened to me too.
Who's talking? Oh, you have your own grave site now too?
Thanks to my mother and father. Yep.
I said, it was a birthday card and everything, and inside says, welcome to the Hebrew Tillers Association, cemetery, and this is your lot number. Your parents have just bought you your gravestone, your, lot. I never thought anybody else in the world did that.
My parents didn't do that.
Oh,
I was with my mother 2 months while she was in hospice, and it was very settling, very wonderful. I was with my mother-in-law when she died. It was beautiful. They're wonderful experiences, actually. You wouldn't think so, but it's fantastic. Yeah.
Yeah.
They're very important experiences.
And yours, and Beverly, yours is full of love. You could just feel it, the love.
But I also wanted to hit home with Ukraine. That was important, where I think, like, when I say the greater than the love of power, that's Putin. He loves power over peace.
Many people do.
Yeah. So I wanted to make a major statement in the very beginning and the very end of having to say goodbye to people that you might never see again.
Beverly, you nailed it. By the way, you're the best blower of kisses ever. I've never seen that pause to where I don't know what you did. You put your hand out and you put your kiss on your hand, and then you paused a second and then you blew it in a good way. And that's very effective.
Thank you.
I would like to hear the famous musician Jimi Hendrix. No comma. Don't follow Hendrix with the.
I'm sorry, you want to hear Jimi Hendrix what now?
Do I want to hear Jimi Hendrix right now? If it's rendered by Mitch, I might, but.
No. It would be rendered by Jimi Hendrix.
I went up to Cafe Lena in Saratoga, which is known worldwide, this cafe for their folk singing and singing. He sang there. And I went up to their first open mic that they had, and I told the story. And when I said Jimi Hendrix has stood on the stage, and this is what he has written in one of his songs, and I said it, and they loved it because they knew he had been right on that stage performing, and when he was young and just beginning. So that was an honor to be there saying those words.
Beverly, would you take the time to clarify for me, in the beginning of the story, one of your forebears, male, had a store, a shop, and he would stand in the doorway or in the window, and his hands would go on his chest, and you uttered the word trust. I
Oh,
wondered,
he had a sign in the wall, and I have a picture of him holding his hands like this, and he was from Russia. And behind him was a sign saying "No trust," meaning,
No credit.
no credit.
No
I
credit.
have that.
I
I
didn't
thought
know.
so, but I
Something
didn't
that's like, I
know
would
for
buy
sure.
something that said, I don't trust, my products aren't worth trusting, so.
That
Well,
was
it's
the
the
tailor
opposite to
shop.
me. Oh, sorry.
Okay, I think you're right, and I need to be more specific.
Yeah, you mean,
about
because
that.
I'm not from the East Coast. I've only been to the New York City airport. I've only been to Kennedy Airport for 4 hours, and that's my whole trip to New York. So I have no conception of the culture or what the words mean.
I went to college for 2 years in Long Island, Southampton, right near the end.
Uh-huh.
And I would hitchhike the LIU into the village, and I'd have fun. And then I'd go to like the theater where they had a band, and the first band was at 8, and then they started the show at 11. And I went to the 11 o'clock show. You could walk in, you were stoned right away from the smoke. And then I'd catch up with friends, and we'd get back. They jammed like till 2, 3 in the morning after the last show. And we
Wow.
did for clams, and we had a fire. And we boiled water, and we had other food, and we had the guitars and all that.
We
and
were
then
on the
we
beach,
slept-
yeah.
Yeah, and then we slept all day. And then that year was 69. The New York Mets were playing for the World Series, and we had one little black and white TV that was in this room, and all of us gathered to watch the Mets win the World Series. So I had long hair past my waist, a floppy hat, the blue jeans and everything. I was a real hippie, and I decided to transfer to Troy, New York, where I ended up teaching for 35 years. But I went to Russell Sage, which is a prim and proper girls' school. And here I come in the first day of classes in my floppy, whatever. And they were all stared at me like, who the hell is she? Because I was living at my parents' house to save money going back and forth. So and then of course, when I was student teaching, if you were only wear dresses or skirts, and I had to go buy a few. But if they weren't the right length, they would tell you had to go home and get a new pair of, new dress or skirt on. So I was a outsider, but they liked me and they hired me. So they took me out of student teaching and hired me before I graduated. And then I had to go to night school to finish my classes. So,
Beverly, may I interrupt with a comment for you and for Vicky, because what you told us about being bequeathed, being given, being something that the funeral plot, because my mom survived my dad, but my twin brother had to really beat the bushes when the funeral parlor was giving trouble about the funeral plot mom and dad bought together several years before. But that's with survivors. But if you or Vicky don't have survivors, I'm not saying your place will give you grief, but you won't be there to receive it, and nobody will. So you be sure that
Yeah.
that you will have that honored, because you've been paying all these premiums.
yeah, I have all the record keeping. I have them in a file just for that reason, not to change the
But you won't
subject.
be alive, but your brothers will be, or somebody.
I'm paying for a lot of nice vacations for them in the future. I don't have any kids. I have 3 cats. They've agreed to take my cats, so they get everything, I told like a real quick 4 or 5 minute story. Very first time, I have it not written down. Would you give me the opportunity? I think is did you hear the chicken story, Vicky? Yeah, no, I told it Saturday morning with Gil Herman. Could I just do a real quickie story? Would anybody mind?
If
I'm
there's no one who minds, you're East Coast, I'm willing to give you the mic again in a row.
Okay. Ready? Real quick. I was 4 years old. My grandmother comes to me. She had taught me how to make pickled herring in a barrel. She had taught me how to make cucumbers into pickles in a barrel. She goes, now it's time for you to learn how to make do a chicken. I said, what? And she has a burlap bag with a squawking chicken in it. Come on, we're taking the bus downtown near our tailor shop. So off we go with the clucking chicken in the bus about 5 minutes down the road. We get off, we cross the street, we go into this place with sawdust on the floor and benches. And there's all these women pulling feathers out of chickens. They're hurting the chickens, Grandma. Nah, they'll be okay. And she takes out the chicken and she goes, I'm going to teach you how to pluck out chicken. And she's plucking the chicken. And I'm not going near it. And I go, Grandma, you're hurting it. Don't worry about it. This is a chicken. And then we stand in line and there's a rabbi. All these women are in lines with their hairless chickens. All their feathers are out. And the rabbi takes the chicken, says a prayer, and it's squawking, puts it in the sink and stops squawking. Takes the chicken, gives it to my grandmother. Now it's a kosher chicken. The rabbi has said the prayer over it. Now we could eat this chicken, puts it back in the bag. Grandma, shh. So then we go back on the bus and up to the house again. Now, she had showed me how to make challah. So she goes, now we're going to put the challah in for tonight, the bread. And now we're going to learn how to take the eggs out of the chicken. Oh my God, this was a very traumatic event for me. And then she reaches in, she takes out chicken eggs, but they don't have shells on them. There's just soft, round parts of an egg. But she goes, now, these are the eggs. Why doesn't it have shells, Grandma? Well, that forms later, and then they lay them, and that's what you see when they lay it in their nests. She goes, come on over to the stove. There's a bowl, a pot of chicken soup that she had made earlier, and she drops the eggs into the soup. She goes, you use the eggs from the chicken to put into the soup. That's what gives it its real flavor. Oh. And she took the chicken, put it in a pan, and stuck it in the oven. Now that night, we're all sitting around the Shabbos table. My aunt, my uncle, my cousins, every Friday night, we all got together. And they're passing around the food. And the plate of chicken comes to me, and I just passed it that way. I was not going to eat my poor chicken. Now, I'm never going to eat it again either. I'm not going to eat chicken for the rest of my life. I'm sitting there thinking, well, my parents moved. They had lived above my grandparents, and they built a house, and they moved to their own house. And my mother went grocery shopping. She never pickled anything or did any of that stuff. And my mother said, come on, we have to go grocery shopping. We have to buy some food. We're out of chicken. And I had, a couple of years ago, I started eating the chicken. And I said, Mom, I don't really want to go with you because, I don't want to pull the feathers out of the chicken or anything. She goes, what? She goes, we buy it all packaged and frozen. We just have to cook it. I said, you mean I don't have to grow up and pull feathers out of a chicken to eat chicken? No, the grandma used to do that to make it kosher. And then I said, thank God for the grocery store.
Thank you, Beverly.
And then they're the only, I don't even have it written down. This is all from just, so I wanted to say, I think it's a nice story. It's short, but it's good.
Did they pluck the feathers out before they killed the chicken?
Yeah, we are sitting there plucking the chicken with all the feathers.
Before you killed it.
Right, but and then we stood in line, and then the rabbi.
I didn't know that was done that way, because we had chickens when I was a little girl, and we would kill the chicken first before we plucked the feathers off.
It had to be a kosher chicken to eat it, so the rabbi had to kill it and say the blessing to make it kosher.
But why can't you cut the head off before you pluck it?
They don't cut the head off. They slit the throat and let
or whatever they do.
Yeah.
Kill it first.
All I know is that's the tradition to make it kosher.
Okay, thanks.
Beverly.
I'm sorry.
I really didn't eat chicken for a long time. And then when they started serving other meat, I said, oh, that came from a cow. I mean, if that came, from this or that.
Well, usually it doesn't come from a cow, it comes from a steer.
Oh, well, all I knew is
you don't eat cows.
I was a real vegetarian for years.
But see, I come from the West. My mother was on a ranch. We don't eat cows. We eat steers.
Okay.
Cows have babies.
Oh, okay. I didn't know. I mean, I know that, but I didn't realize it,
Well, Beverly, you're bringing out all this expertise. Colleen, may I welcome Renu? I want to share with Renu Beverly's egg part of her chicken
I was
story.
waiting for you, Renu, to tell me my story.
Hi.
My other story.
Hi. Oh
Good.
God, it's so lovely to see you all. I almost missed the meeting because Linda, your mail, I received it, I think, late last night, and I didn't check it first thing in the morning. And then I went for my walk, came back, and I was in a bit of a rush because I need to go out and meet somebody at 11 o'clock this morning. So I just came to say how much I love all of you, just to say hi, because I can't stay and tell a story. Just wanted to express my feelings. So that's why I came. So I have to leave. In fact, I would have loved to sit for some time and listen to the story, but I live really far from the city and I need to go all the way to the city now. So I have to have a quick bath and I need to get ready and I have to book a cab and I need to go. So
Oh my,
let's
my.
join.
Renu, could you contact me to do a story in India? I really have a really good story I told tonight that I.
Yes,
thought-
I will, Beverly. I will do
Thank
that.
you. I'll look
Just
forward to you.
Thank you, Rainu.
Yeah.
Thank you, Rainu. It's nice to see you. Oh, you
I
can't.
think, I think what we need to do is blow her a kiss.
Oh,
fine, we'll
we all know
practice.
how to do that. Did you catch it?
I blew a group kiss for all of you. Come on. A strong one, a hot one from hot Chennai. Bye, guys. I'll see you
Bye.
next month. Bye.
Oh my gosh, Beverly, I couldn't tell Rainu about the eggs, but now we know the shells form when they're being
Great.
Right,
roosted.
and when they're in the chicken, they're just a hard yellow ball of the whatever, the yolk. And then the shells form and then they release them into their nests. So,
the
and
shells
that's,
form and harden.
yeah. And, yeah, so, and then they put them in the chicken and
Hey,
I told the story on Saturday. Someone said, you're right, because my mother was Jewish and she used to do the same thing with go and get the chicken eggs out and put it in the soup.
They harden as the egg comes out.
Yeah.
Right.
Ah,
There's a little gland that puts the shell around the egg. We
ah.
had chickens and we accidentally cut open one with all the eggs in it. And I couldn't eat chicken for years. It's quite an experience. Yes, good story.
Right. So, every time I buy chicken at Price Chopper, I say to myself, thank God for Price Chopper. That's our supermarket here. Oh, God.
My. Can you stay for any more? Well, we
Oh,
won't.
yeah, I'd like to hear somebody. It's 11. I'm keeping track of the time, but I can always come home and sleep.
Wow. Well, let me, without further
Yeah.
ado, unless Bobby or Colleen wants to precede, Vicky, I think you have a story. Maybe you don't.
I'm good listening. Go.
Uh-huh.
Actually, you sort of talked me into a story. I was going to say I was thinking about this the other day. It was when my grandmother passed away. Do you mind me borrowing the theme of of loved
Yeah.
ones dying? Well, my grandmother, she was
Would you like to highlight her so I'm not highlighted, please?
Oh, thank you.
oh, okay.
Colleen, do you want me to,
Yeah, you can highlight me. I don't have very good lighting, but I have a light above. So no. Yeah.
Thank you for letting me tell my stories. I
Oh
appreciate
yeah. Oh no, that was nice. That was interesting. I learned more cultural thing. I didn't know kosher involved the plucking first, and I have to think about that. So I have to Google it and read about it and contemplate it for a bit.
it.
Thanks to you.
My mother told me that's the way you have to do it with the rabbi because
Okay.
that makes it kosher.
Oh, okay.
Whether she's right or not, I don't know, but I believed my mother.
Oh, all right. Oh no, that's fine. It's just I didn't know it was people. Oh, well, never mind.
Colleen, I have just stopped the recording to ask you, do you want to be recorded?
It doesn't matter.
Okay.
I'm fine.
Okay. Very
How's
good.
that?
Thank you.
Okay.
Oh, well, you're still being
Am-
recorded.
I think maybe it never stopped because it's going.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. Well, I'm glad you said yes.
Oh, okay.
So I'm
All right.
I'm spotlighting you. And there you go.
Okay. And I haven't timed this one, so if I go over, let me know. This was, well, my grandmother, when she became, she owned her own business. She was a very strong, bossy woman, I guess. I don't know what to say bossy, but she supervised everyone around her. And she lived in Hawaii for a while. And she owned her own business. She owned a Moto Day thing in 3 different locations. And the last one was in Seattle, and that's where she retired. But then she had gone on a trip to Hawaii, so she wanted to live there. And that was more expensive. So her money was getting low. So she moved back to Seattle. And then when she started getting dementia, because they called it hardening of the arteries back then. So I don't know if it was what we would call Alzheimer's or just poor blood flow to your brain because of your hard arteries. But so she came to live with us, and she had a hard, well, actually it was an interesting life. She was born on a wagon train outside of Boise, Idaho, while her family was moving their horse ranch from Oregon to South Dakota. So that's interesting. But she was a very modern woman. She liked to wear all the nice styles. Well, of course, she owned a dress shop, so she liked to have the right clothes and everything. Unlike me, I didn't inherit that from her, but she was, and so she lived with us for a while, but she kept, not in her intentionally, but we made that basement into an apartment, but she couldn't live there anymore because if we weren't there paying attention to her, she would do something that would try and set the place on fire, unintentionally, of course, because she had dementia. So we had to put her in a home, and it was a really nice place. Her roommate was very nice. And it was a home that had been converted into a care facility. So it was very personable. And she seemed to like it there. She liked her roommate, and she liked the young men that came in and vacuumed the floor and everything. And so she was there. And then my dad is a professor, and he had got to go to Tucson, Arizona for a year. So my grandmother was in the care facility, and they decided to leave her there. And then they had friends from our church go and visit her. And I didn't have a car, but I would use the ladies from the church to go visit her. And I stayed in, and actually it was sort of my freedom year, because it was the first year I got to move away from home, and I got to stay in the dorm in college. So they went down, and we lived in Salt Lake City. So they went down to Arizona for a year. And then while they were gone, I visited her a couple times with Mrs. Wilson took me. And then I got a call from Dr. Marshall, and he says, "You better call your mother. I don't think your grandmother is going to live much longer." So I called my mother, and they weren't the kind of people that flew. So she left the next morning, but it'd take her 2 days to drive up. So I called Mrs. Wilson, and Mrs. Wilson took me to see my grandmother. And I went in there, and it was almost like she was in another world. She says, "Hi." And I said, "Hi." And she said, she didn't care who I was. She didn't use my name, but she said, "My mother's here visiting me." And then she says, and my husband, Art. Now, this wasn't my grandfather, because my grandfather and her had gotten divorced, and she remarried later on. Art is here, and he had died of cancer probably before her last dress shop owning. Yeah. He had died of cancer probably probably 20 or 30 years before. And she says, "Art was here too. In fact, he's here now. Can't you see him in the doorway?" And I thought, oh my goodness. And I said, "Okay." And but it was like that. And then the next day she passed on, and it was unfortunate because my mom hadn't made it back in time to see her. But we had a nice ceremony for her and everything. But then again, years later, my mother got dementia too. And she was put in a care facility, but it was a nice place because my dad could visit her, but he died first. that like my dad was in the regular part and she was in the dementia part, but they could have dinner together. They could have all their meals together. So it was nice and visit. But then my dad died first, and my mom, she kept thinking that he was there visiting her. So maybe it runs in the family that I said, have you seen Dad? And he says, well, yes, he was here this morning. He died 5 years before. And he thinks I should stay here a few more months before he comes and takes me home. And so when she went very quietly. I happened to be lucky enough to be there with her. And she just slipped away when I had my back turned. And probably maybe my dad was there waiting for her. And I believe it happens because my grandmother hadn't loved my grandfather, but she loved her second husband and she loved her mom the most. And those were the two people she talked about the most. And those were the two people that were there to take her on. So it was sort of, I mean, it's very spiritual to be with someone when they're on their last, when they're at their last, you know, when it's going naturally, when they're in their 90s and when they're going. So it's and that's the end of my story. So I think, you know, I think it, you know, we shouldn't laugh at the supernatural because there's probably more in heaven and earth than we can dream about in our little minds. As I'm misquoting Shakespeare. So thank you.
Oh, go Colleen. I'm really glad. And thank you, Beverly, for sparking that story in Colleen.
Yeah,
Oh,
I've heard a lot of interesting comments, just like yours. After I tell my story, people are telling stories of themselves and relatives, and it's like I should write out now a book about reactions of what people say, like you. It's an interesting subject.
Mhm.
You know, my mother would say to me, Bev, if somebody from the dead talks to you, you don't answer them, because that means that if you answer them, you're going to be joining them.
Well, actually, both my grandmother and my mother are Native American, and they talk to spirits all the time. So maybe it's a skill that they inherited, and I might have a little bit of it too because I've seen a couple ghosts, which
Yeah.
we will talk about today.
And my
And I
mother-in-law,
answered. Oh, sorry, Bobby.
that's right. When my mother-in-law died, I was there and she made me get in the bed with her. I said, we're going on a trip tomorrow. She said, no, we're going on a trip tonight. Her husband came. He was about 45 years old and he was there. I could see him, and then she just peacefully went. And I thought, and it was just bright and beautiful and music. And I can't tell you, I thought, God, Bobby, you're crazy. But it was
No.
real. It was real. It was real. It was
Yeah.
wonderful. She asked me to stay. She wouldn't let her son or her daughter. She asked me, she knew I'd be the person to help her.
Mhm.
It's interesting.
Well, I'm glad you got that experience. If it was with my grandmother, if I was there now, I might have seen him. But then I didn't believe it at the time. I was only 18. So
Oh, yes.
it's my first year in college. So
Got to be older.
yeah, I wasn't old enough to really appreciate the experience. This is, but she's right there in the doorway.
I have something freaky to tell you guys. I don't share this with a lot of people. When I came home one day, my parents were sitting around the kitchen table looking horrible. And they said, we have something to tell you. And I said, Bobby died. And this was like a mid 30-year-old guy had a heart attack. It was a cousin. He looked at me, how did you know? I don't know. I just guessed, you know? And when I was driving home one night from Troy, I saw these men playing cards in this window and stuff. And I said, it's too bad that building's not going to be here any longer. That night it burned down. And then a teacher came into my room and she's talking away to me. And I looked at her and I said, oh, I feel like she's going to die any minute. She just looks horrible. I came to school the next day and she was dead. And I'll tell you more. No, she had a cerebral, she had a hemorrhage. And then the last one I'll tell you about, there's many more, but I got out of school and I used to go swimming. I'm swimming my laps and I say, oh, it's too bad that he got shot. and his wife must feel just so horrible. And I'm going, I'm thinking of President Reagan, I got in the car and I turned the radio on. He had just been shot. So I'm like, don't ask me anything about anything in the future or happening because I see it. And my mother had the same gift or whatever. And, that's why she said, Bev, if somebody from the dead talks to you, don't answer them, and she had, reasons for, that'll make maybe me die or somebody else die.
Oh, no, I don't believe that. I've answered the people I've talked.
Oh, yeah, yeah. But, it's just like really freaky. And I think and I've met other people which have had similar experiences to me that they can, feel the death coming in people that even, or something bad happening. So I kind of, I don't think I've told anybody this in about 30 years because I've been, 20 years, I've been afraid of telling anybody, So.
So Bev, if I look like I'm gonna die, don't tell me.
Yeah, don't tell me. Don't tell me. I don't want to know the future.
Horrible
I'll
gift.
come back to haunt you and if you tell me before.
Oh my God.
I would.
You know what I
would-
ended up with? I have a 1850, what do you call it? Funeral, cemetery behind my house in my woods. I can see it from my windows. And I went there and I had seen a lot of Elizabeths. And today I was putting some leaves nearby and I noticed that, one had married a daughter of the farmer, that lived there. So it's really freaky. I have my graveyard that I take care of. Nobody ever clean it. Some 1850, there's no one around to keep it clean and nice.
Ah,
So I
Yeah.
take care of the graveyard.
I would get messages from the universe, and it was either dogs on the street or whatever. And I said, look, I can't take those kind of messages. Please send me something very nice, something I can accept. And it kind of cooled all that down. I'm very glad.
Yeah. Remember, they're beings like us. They just don't have bodies.
Yeah, yeah.
Well,
Or they take other bodies to give you a message.
Oh, I've never had that happen.
the 7 kids from this cow farm is married the 7 kids on the next cow farm, and they're all buried behind me. So,
Oh, dairies. You mean dairies? Yeah.
yeah, cow farm. Yeah, it was dairy
That's what you call them, dairy. Okay.
yeah. Yeah, this whole area of Latham where I live was all cow farms when I moved
It was
here.
dairies. Okay. Okay.
I'm sorry, dairy.
Oh,
dairy
no.
farm.
No. It's just like I wouldn't know what a cow farm was.
You can tell she's got some farm country or farming.
We're out of ranch country.
My
Exactly.
house was next to the cow farm and the cows would get loose and they'd end up, some of them in our backyard. So I would take the cow on the way to school, which I had to walk to school, and I'd drop off the cow to the farmer and he said, oh, thank you for bringing my cow. On the way home, pick up some eggs for returning my cow for you.
Oh,
So
that's
I
nice.
used
Yeah.
to get eggs or fruit or vegetables. I was always looking for a cow, to bring back to the farmer so I can get some free eggs or fruit or whatever.
Oh, that's a nice agreement. Yeah, that's nice.
So what do you have on your t-shirt? Cows? Or
Oh.
what?
Me?
Oh,
I have, no, they're elk.
oh, elks, okay. 4-footers.
It's from Glacier National Park, Montana.
Oh, wow.
My
Cool.
sister used to live close to there, so.
I have to show you my cat. He's laying there watching us. You see him?
Oh, yeah, we
Oh,
saw
my,
him.
same place
Oh,
as
then-
before.
He
He
has
lays
a
there. He does, he's like attached to my hip, that cat.
Oh, that's nice. I had one like that, but I'm petless right now.
So
Well, I said
Beverly,
tubes were tied and I ended up rescuing a cat last December. It's 5 years old and I'm 71. I just hope I can outlive her.
So Beverly, I hope I'm not getting confused. Colleen commented about cows versus steers. And I needed that, Colleen. Thank you.
Oh, okay. Well,
It's
there's,
embarrassing.
I've never heard a dairy called a cow farm, but now I know what it is. And I know why the Easterners will drive around and say, look at all those cows, when it might be a herd of a field of 3 or 4 bulls. And I know why they're
Included.
Heifers
now.
or heifers, not
Or
necessarily
heifers,
bulls.
or heifers, or whatever, because now I know why they say that, because that
Yeah.
you've made me more tolerant. I mean,
And you
you've
know-
made me more multicultural, Beverly.
Right, and they both have horns. So,
They both have horns. Well, it depends.
yeah,
It depends.
depends.
There's
Yeah.
lots of stories with ranches.
So, Colleen, your story was not over time. We
Oh,
give a
okay.
5 to 10 minute window, which is very liberal
Okay.
and liberally treated. But I noticed that it was over 5, FYI, and I think it was from 8:05 to 8:10, but mostly it was, I'm pretty sure it was 8:05 to 8:12 or 13. So it could have been
Okay.
as much as 8, FYI.
Oh, all right. 8. Yeah, I hadn't timed that one. Thank you very much.
Well, thank goodness for the easy digitals on our screens, upper right corner, right?
That's true. If you turn them on.
Well, unless Vicky or Bobby or Vicky has changed their minds about telling, I have not. We've run up our time or are wanting to tell, but maybe I'm wrong.
You have a story? How long is it?
And we'll
Linda?
stay for you. You stayed for us, so we'd be glad to
Yeah,
listen
we'll
to
be
you.
glad.
Yeah.
Yeah, Linda, do you have a story?
Do I have a story? I have a story, but it isn't ready. I say that often.
So next month it will be, maybe?
Well, thanks for asking. That helps me answer yes.
Okay.
So, Bobby, have you or Vicky changed your minds?
No, I need to sort through all these different drafts, you might call them, and make it into one. And I've got to decide which names I'm going to call the characters, because there's a gamut of a whole bunch of names. So I have to smooth it up, basically, is what I'm saying. But it's about Vasilisa and Russia. And I don't know why this tale keeps coming up. I've been working on it since I started storytelling, and it's taken many different forms, and I've written it down, many people have corrected it. And as a writer, you're supposed to put more descriptive things in it, but as a storyteller, you don't want to fog up the person's mind with details. You kind of want them to imagine it. So it's very interesting, that play between, and I'm trying to make some fictional, spiritual, fantasy characters in this fairy tale more real. So it's like Koski, the old boneless, invincible, and he's actually death, and I'm trying to make him a symbol of power. You know what power does? It smothers you with fog, and it's bitter. And then this young, let's see, he's a king. He could be a czar, but maybe not. It depends on where I put it on the calendar, what countries. It's from the pond beyond ponds beyond ponds. And he's like Borsky, the guy in the Ukraine who's fighting like mad for his country. He's the spirit of freedom. And then Vasilisa is Russia. She's a whole land, and she's wise and she's clever, but she needs to be, I hate this, saved. So I've got these 3 very important characters, maybe, yeah. And then there's the Baba Yagas, that they are the 3 grandmothers, one of weaving, one of cooking and that, and then the other one of spirits that help her. And then Ivan's, the hero's name, helps him later on. It's very complicated. It's a very complicated story.
So did you create this yourself, and is
No,
it
no.
your background? No.
No, I had let's see, how did I come to this story? It's always, she's the frog princess, where the guy, she's captured as a frog to save her. And this prince, I'm going to tell the story, but anyway, she has a frog skin, and this character burns it. You've heard it, the Frog Princess, Vasilisa the Frog. Some of you have heard it. Well, I heard many different versions and visited many different places, and I've extended it to kind of make sometimes it's 25 pages and it could be up to 80 pages long, 600 words to 15,000 words. So I'm trying to make it, and I told it up in Feather River Camp as a storyteller. I told it in 3 different sessions, and I haven't really told the story yet. And I have this elfin community that lives in my yard down below there, created by my granddaughter and grandson somewhat, and they get involved with her, but it takes a whole different other twist. She's a Sherry, so I'm trying to put those 2 together so there's more description and not the repetition. I mean, doing a story is hard. You know, you think it's going to be easy. You all know this. And by the time you get those characters in your mind and they keep shifting around, I had a fairy once who wouldn't sit still. I couldn't get her to sit still so I could capture her. And that's how characters are in your story. You got to mold them and figure out what name are they really? What is this guy's name? You know, that's where I'm at. I'm in I said, like a garbage thing with all this stuff going on in my head.
Yeah, sometimes I just have to start writing it, so.
It's written, that's the problem. It's
Oh my
written
goodness, all right.
it's written in 3 or 4
They're
different,
still doing that.
it's written 3 or 4 different ways.
Bobby, is an abundance of
It's an abundance, well, they,
possibilities.
I have too many.
that's hard.
Anyway,
When's your next meeting? May I ask?
We next
Third
meet
Monday.
on May 16. Monday, May 16.
I'll put it on my calendar now, so I hope to make it.
Oh, that would be great.
I'll be babysitting my grand boys, the teenagers, but I'll try to come. It's in Santa Rosa.
Yeah, I'll come when I can, but I'm not sure. Sometimes I have other things on Monday, but not always.
Well, I'm glad you all came tonight. This was big fun. Wasn't it friendly, Rain? You came just to say
Yeah.
hi. And
Yes.
Yes, and I got to
Delightful.
see Linda in real life on last Saturday.
Colleen, that
Oh,
was
you
since
went
that
in
was
real-
since 2020. That was since 2020,
Yeah,
not 2019. That was cool.
Wow.
Ed Lewis, who's the president of the Californias, he was going to
He
be
was there
flying
real
out.
he was
life.
there too.
Yeah.
Ed
He
Lewis
was-
was there.
He was in March. We had planned for him to fly out, and I was taking him down to New York to stay at a friend's house and see all of New York. And then we were going to go up to New Hampshire for the live in-person Nest conference, but then they canceled it, so he couldn't come.
Oh,
I was really excited to meet a real person and not just someone from Zoom.
Yeah,
you know,
yeah.
so-
yes. Well,
so
Linda she
yeah.
looks the same, but she had a white mask on.
Oh,
And
okay.
and I didn't have washed hair, so I was wearing a white
And a hat.
mask and
He
a
had a hat and a mask, but I recognized her.
Who's Linda?
But me,
Linda.
Colleen and I were at the same festival
Oh,
in
Linda.
Orinda, California on Saturday.
Yeah.
Did a lot of people come?
Do you remember the large proscenium? Well,
Yes, I
that
know.
was 3/4 full, I would say.
Yeah.
Oh, good. I was going to come, but it didn't work out, so I tried to do virtual, which didn't work
Well,
out
Vicky
either.
had trouble too, but it's supposed to be viewable,
Okay.
even the 2 hours that they had no camera.
Yeah. Sometimes
Yeah,
it takes a while for them to put it up.
Well, the
too,
staff,
so.
the people that they got couldn't do it. So I don't know who it was, but they went and got their own cameras and recorded it. And so there should not be any missing parts.
Oh, okay. But sometimes it takes a couple days to put it up.
Well, I am planning to
don't know if
come
it's
out to
there.
California because I have family in Texas, so I'm going to try to do a loop for, Texas and meet Ed up, and he's going to try to take me to some of the groups that I've been going to.
Ah,
Wow.
here in
wonderful.
person. But
we
they'll
could-
be.
Well, we haven't met in real life yet, so.
Yeah,
I
tell us
know.
again.
Hey, I know, I'll fly on a plane and meet someone, who cares? Oh, yeah, I have to tell you, ladies, you'll like this, as we're all ladies here.
Beverly,
Um,
what month are you coming to
Oh,
town?
no, I'm not coming till after all my surgeries. I have
know,
another
I know.
surgery in the
Oh, so
summer.
you
so
don't
might
know
be the
yet.
Fall or next year sometime,
Okay.
you
okay.
know, I'll let you know when, you know what I mean? But, oh yeah. So this guy in the Northeast Storytelling Conference in New Hampshire, and the first night he's there and he's from Israel. So I said, oh, well, you know, so I emailed him, oh, you're from Israel. So we did a little chatty. And all weekend long, every single one that I had picked, and you pick from a lot, he was always there. So then I said to him, well, if you want to see me do a story, I did this for Sheila Arnold on this past Sunday, Sacred Stories. I told the one about my father. And he wrote me 2 lovely emails. He came and I guess he reminded me of his dead wife and his father dying and all that stuff. So he's writing me all these really nice emails now. And, you know, I'm saying, whoa, you know, and he met his wife near Albany, you know, and he has a brother-in-law or brother is still in Syracuse near me. So, you know, and so I just think life is interesting of who you meet on Zoom as well as in person, you know. Yeah,
The
and he's
both.
cute. He's kind of cute, you know, and
The
so
both.
I don't know.
Beverly, I'm glad you shared that. I got to meet Sheila Arnold on Saturday. Colleen might have
Oh.
from the stage.
I didn't
was in
come to her, but I saw her
California.
from the stage.
Pardon?
How
All
is she in person?
She
All the
came to
storytellers
California.
were very good.
She's
Yeah.
great in person, but she, I think, helped spark the event on Saturday.
Well, I
The
know
day
she
before
was
Easter.
in the I usually pay to watch the Jonesboro Festival online, and she was in that. She was one
Oh.
of the featured storytellers. I think so. I think Diane Ferlette tried to get her.
She's all over the place.
She's
Well-
national. She's national.
Oh, I know,
reputation.
but I didn't know about her until COVID, and she was so I was on a few of her broadcasts or
Oh, okay, yeah.
Zooms, but from the stage on Saturday, if I understood Linda Yamoto of SAC correctly, it was Sheila Arnold being in California in April in 2022 that
Oh.
sparked the SAC people to call her up. Maybe Diane did the calling, but they
Oh,
knew
yeah.
she was coming, and that
Mm.
get.
Oh, okay. Well, like she was here for another reason, and they just sort of
Mhm.
put her in. Oh, that's
But
good.
she sparked so much youthful and inclusive energy. For example, this is how inclusive Sheila is. This is a bit technical, but there was a panel and all the tellers were on it in a long horizontal line on the stage when the subject of texting surfaced and attention span. And Willie Claflin was eloquently negative about our attention spans and our frequent use of screens, and Sheila asked for a rebuttal, and it showed me how
Oh.
much Sheila respects the fact that we can't be expecting people a third or less of our age to be going around with notebooks and pens, and that it's not always folly, it's often fact checking, and Sheila
Oh.
just had a lot to say that was opposite of Willie, so there you go.
Yeah, I know. I went to this fancy Spanish restaurant once, and this father brought his wife and son in, and he was there with no electronic devices, and he kept wanting to talk to them, and all they did all the time they were eating was his wife and son just looked at their cell phones.
Now,
And
yeah,
I
I've
felt
seen that.
so sorry for him.
The boys, my teenage boys can do that and listen to you at the same time.
But they weren't. He wasn't.
weren't?
I felt
Okay.
sorry for that.
I noticed your recording. I hope that I don't want that Israeli thing out, ladies, about me telling you. So take that off the recording.
I'm going to pause it